This week on The Great Equalizer and TGE Talks Menopause, we're settling in for the fourth installment of this series, and this time we're tackling midlife and its impact on your mental health.
Approaching perimenopause and think you might be losing your mind? Same WhatsApp group, friends. Same WhatsApp group.
This is why we have an expert guest joining us from Cape Town to normalize anything cray we might have to say or think. Welcome, clinical psychologist Mareli Fischer.
Hi guys, it's lovely to be here with you.
Gosh, we were talking off mic a little bit now, and we're just like, oh yes, you're a psychologist. Let's actually hit the record button.
Yeah,
because,
before this conversation gets too meaty and then we lose all the gold.
So Mareli, we'd love to slot you in to context for those of our listeners and viewers who don't know you. Tell us more about yourself, your career journey, what made you land up as a clinical psychologist in particular, and your affiliation with My Sexual Health, which Charlene and I are huge fans of.
Me too. I'm so inspired by that whole team. And yeah, thank you for having me. I am a clinical psych in Cape Town. I studied at UCT. I grew up around Cape Town. It is my home, and I work and practice here at the moment. So I also turned 40 this year. So this is it's a sort of my lived experience and my professional experience that go together on this topic. So at My Sexual Health, I'm part of the mental health team, part of the psychologists and counselors. We all work in a multidisciplinary way, like you guys would have heard from our other team members too. So we often approach challenges from different perspectives, but with the same goal, better sexual health and just advocacy for everyone. And the question about being a clinical psych, I've always been interested in people's stories and people's narratives. I'm really fascinated about how we become who we are and how we develop certain behaviors, how we develop grit and resilience. And so it was a bit of an obvious choice for studying. And then the sexual health stuff, I want to say it also found me because I love working with women and I love working with adolescents and young people. And sexual identity is such a big part of our identities. And becoming someone who's a safe space and comfortable to talk about these things, it's important to me. So I found Elna Rudolph and I found Sasha and I found the team, and it's been a lovely working relationship. So yeah. I feel very passionate about this work, like I said, and also just feminism in general. I've got a bit of a political mind, and I think our professional and personal lives, they are also political and they're also influenced. And even something like perimenopause and menopause, you think it's just health, but it's actually a worldwide topic, affecting all women and all people.
You're preaching to the converted sister.
Really happy to be here talking to us about that.
You know what? I love finding professional unicorns like you, Mareli, because I wonder if you'll agree, because obviously this isn't your mindset, but do you think that the connection between sexual health and wellness, your hormones and your mental health is often overlooked, that people kind of treat these things in isolation within their lives, typically?
Definitely. And I think it is getting a little bit better through conversations like this and teams like the My Sexual Health team, but still mental health, sexual health, and general sort of medicine, it's siloed so separately. Yeah. So often a gynecologist won't even ask a patient of mine about their sexual function. They'll just do a pap smear and they'll talk about contraception, but they won't ask about quality of sexual interaction or desire.
Yes.
And the same with the GP. The GP might do your checkup and check your cholesterol and your sugar, but not ask at all about, sexual health. So I think this general health, it's sort of siloed, but we can't separate it. It's all part of one human.
I agree with you. And I think add to that there also has historically not been enough research on women's health in general. That's starting to change now. There's a lot more research coming about. But I think that's also why medically it's always been kept in silos, because there has not been enough research about women's bodies.
Right. And we actually spoke in episode 2 with Dr. Louisa Albertine, and she said exactly that and we even had our complaints. Like, I love my gynae. She's my obstetrician. She delivered my babies. But when I broached the subject of potentially being on the outskirts of perimenopause, it was outright dismissed. And I just don't think the education was there. But the more we talk about it as women and the more we rope in professionals like you, the more we're starting to fill in the gaps, right?
And I think that a response like that from a medical professional that you trust just makes you feel even more crazy.
Isolated, yeah.
Which just affects your mental health even more.
And also the discomfort you see in your medical professional, then it makes you more awkward. And can I ask these things if they are uncomfortable speaking about it? No?
Yeah.
But that is definitely changing. I mean, we are doing so much more medical research on women's issues in general. And I love that women are not making themselves so small anymore. We're not making ourselves smaller to make men comfortable, and we're not making ourselves more digestible. So we're complaining a bit louder than usual or than before.
Yeah, I like it. Well, we definitely are. We complain loud and proud. So I don't know, Mareli, do you have any stats? I've left my stats on my computer and you're on my computer over there. So that was an oversight on my part. But I do know that firstly, in the first year postpartum, the top cause of death among postpartum women is suicide. And there's a similar statistic for women in menopause, that women who are of the age of menopause, the mental health disorders is kind of the top disorder that they struggle with over and above any physical ailments. And this is something that I'm going to connect the official statistics.
We'll link our listeners up with it in the show notes.
Because that was an oversight on my part. But I mean, what is your experience as a professional in the field, a clinical psychologist? Is it something that you're seeing? Is there a pattern there?
For sure. I mean, I think my answer is twofold. The one is that it's so difficult to pin down one stat to kind of encompass it all, because everyone is so unique, and every woman going through this is so unique in terms of her circumstances, her brain, her body. But I will send you guys a link to this article because it's freely available. Amazing. There was a recent study done by two doctors in India, but also linking in the UK, doctors Gary and Munshi, and they look specifically at mental health challenges in menopause and perimenopause. And they speak a lot about this amplified vulnerability. So if you are a woman who previously had a lower level of anxiety or some mood dysregulation, in perimenopause, it'll amplify. And as you go through menopause, it just gets exacerbated. So they speak a lot about that vulnerability. And then they also mentioned this challenge in capturing a single statistic, because why do some women struggle more than others? But what we do know, if we have to say a stat, is that about 80% or even more of women experience this change in their mental health, even if it's just in a way that's not clinically significant. So you might not reach a clinical significant diagnosis of now you have major depression, but you are still more dysregulated than before. You are still more prone to anger and mood swings, even if you're not clinically diagnosable. And then also they say that there's a specific peak time for vulnerability, which is sort of at the end of perimenopause going into full menopause. I mean, we define that, the medical doctors will tell you more in terms of a hormonal number, but there's a time where I think the physical discomforts, the life events, the identity shifts, combined with the hormonal shifts, really cause a perfect storm. And suffering is unnecessary, but suffering is almost a little bit inevitable.
I was just going to say, so we have that to look forward to. Hooray! Listeners, if you're where we are, you got that to look forward to.
But I also want to say, when we anticipate something, when we are feeling a bit more prepared, then we feel so much more empowered. From my own work with my patients, I could say for sure, depression and anxiety, very, very common, but also that it shows up differently from the depression and anxiety you might feel in your 20s or in your earlier 30s. And it looks maybe a bit more like fatigue or a loss of interest. And maybe you are a little bit more angry, where you're not maybe crying the whole day like you did, or you're not as collapsed maybe in dysfunction, because women our age don't really get to collapse in dysfunction often either. So we know that it's underexplored, but it is changing a little bit. I also want to say, I think there's a bi-directional relationship between, your mental health challenges and then your physical self. We know that the mind and the body is very connected, and sometimes in ways that we can't capture with a research project. But what you believe about yourself, how you speak to yourself, it has an impact on your hormones and how your nervous system shows up that regulates or dysregulates your hormones as well. So it's not just the hormones causing the mental health challenge. The mental health challenges also has this, top down, bottom up impact on your hormonal life too.
That is, Mareli, that is like so fascinating to me, because I've noticed almost that I can, and every person is an individual, every woman is unique. But I've noticed that as women approach their 40s or even 50s, there's two types in my life that I've recognized, and that's those who feel redundant, they feel small, they feel they're no longer sexually viable, they've had their kids, maybe their kids are even out the house, especially as they're like mid 40s to 50s. And it's just that they kind of wither away. Societally, you're no longer just the sexual object who has a role. You're an older woman.
My mom calls it, I feel like a used up Kleenex.
Yes.
Like a little Kleenex you don't need anymore.
But then on the other hand, and I mean, you're young, but I'm going to use you as an example. Charlene hit 40 and she's like, fuck this shit. Fuck it. And this woman looks younger every day that passes. And it's not just about looking young or whatever. No, but it's about empowerment. And it's about, true. And Mareli, like what you're saying is how you speak to yourself and the decisions that you make. Charlene is you were the perfect example of someone who took this bull by the horns. And you're like, I'm turning fucking 40. And guess what? Yeah. I'm not
gonna wilt away.
I'm not gonna wilt away. I'm gonna have a voice. I'm gonna be bigger and take up space.
I want to be strong so that when I'm old, I don't break a hip and die from it. I want to like stand with muscles in my legs and my arms, and I want to feel strong. I don't want to feel frail and downtrodden all the time.
We're not letting this get the better of us. And here I think, yes, physically you've done a lot, which we will be talking about. We'll talk about the physical aspects of menopause. I think a lot of the series has to do with hormones, and then also the physical things, the nutrition and the exercise. That lifting heavy is a big thing. But Mareli, you here to chat with us mentally, and that's why I'm really fascinated.
So
what is that dichotomy?
I want to say about that I started out with the intention to be like, I want to be strong, I want to be fit, I want to be healthy. I don't want to be in this body that hurts all the time and I don't feel well. And once I got going, I realized I had to keep going for my mental health. I was like, because I'm angry all the time, to your point of feeling angry all the time and feeling like it was probably also just like fueled by pure rage, all of these decisions that I made, hormonal rage.
Mommy hasn't been for a run. It's very clear Charlene hasn't been to the gym in a long time.
So once I started doing that, I was like, this is great and I feel better in my body. But if I don't stick to it consistently, it affects my mental health. Like I have to do this now to stay sane.
And exercise is this great regulator for all of us. But I also want to say the brain is so affected by all our hormonal shifts. And we know obviously estrogen and progesterone play a huge role, but you're not going crazy because when your estrogen declines, you also lose a little bit of serotonin and dopamine, and your GABA receptors show up differently. And we don't have to go into all the neuropsych now, but these hormones are your happy hormones. They are your motivators. And the other way to hack them is through exercise. So for example, Charlene, what you're doing is your brain is doing something specific in terms of its perimenopausal journey. But then when you choose to go lift heavy weights and go for a run, you're also interfering with that process in a positive way. So then you are mediating that with your own behavior. And we also know another big mediator is sleep, which I preach sleep hygiene all the time. And it's really hard for young parents as well. If you think about how your sleep is interrupted with kids and other responsibilities. But to your point, exercise, sleep, diet, those things are things you can tweak a little bit to combat or just intervene a little bit with the other things you have less control over.
That's such valuable points you make there, I think, for our listeners as well, because especially on my journey, I just want to let our listeners know and our viewers that the hardest thing about this is that you're not going to feel like exercising. You're not going to feel, because you're stuck in a dump here. You're like sliding down into this like space that's certainly how it was for me. You're gradually, it just becomes a little bit darker and darker and darker. And my mental health was in such a bad space when this all came about that it was actually my lack of libido that triggered me to go see a doctor. But while this was going on, I was like, hold up, it's not just libido. I'm like, I'm sleeping, I'm eating, I'm exercising, and I'm still feeling this terrible darkness. And I think that if you can just do baby steps and just don't like force yourself now to go do an hour's worth of weightlifting, because that's what the great equalizer says worked for them, you know. Just if you move your body in very little ways, just break it into bite-sized chunks. And if you just go to bed a half an hour earlier, because it's not always possible for everyone to get those hours. Like you sometimes put your kids to bed and then only you have to get to your work that you didn't manage to finish in the day. And that often happens for you, Sam. So you end up going to bed at like 11 or 12 or whatever. So sleep is a big factor, like you mentioned. And for me, I've almost become obsessive about my sleep. I'm just like, if I'm not in bed, my husband laughs at me because there's a little timer on my phone that rings, ding, 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 it's your bedtime. Start to unwind. And he thinks it's hilarious. But if I don't sleep, I've become obsessive about getting enough sleep because it's the only way I can function.
It's a superpower we have. And also we know that menopause also interrupts sleep, right? With things like hot flashes and insomnia. So it's a bit of a
night
constant
sweats.
battle.
It's great.
Random 3 a.m. wake-ups.
Yeah. And then you start like spiraling, thinking about everything bad that's ever happened to you.
But I mean, it is quite I find sleep to be quite a privilege at this point. I have Noah's smaller than your kids. And also there's the work so our situations are different. If I can get into bed at 8:30 and be reading my book and switching off the lights at 9:30,
that's an absolute
it's
prize.
I feel like I've won the lottery, like 100%.
And it hardly ever happens.
And I'm hyper aware of those tuning in who just don't have that luxury. So Madly, I'm going to throw this at you in terms of mental health. We often talk about work-life balance, but this is like more about a life balance. You've got the three key factors here: nutrition, sleep, and exercise. Besides, this is before we tackle medication.
And hydration. Let's not forget hydration.
But I mean, that's all like part of nutrition for me, right? So for me, it's like there's this, so the circle with the three clear divisions. How do we find that harmony? Because there's never a balance. It's always going to be like, if you've committed to exercising at the 5 a.m. class tomorrow, you're going to be lacking sleep, right? And because you've put your time into that hour's class of exercise, you don't have time to meal prep. And so you are going to grab something more convenient on the way. You're gonna so like
you're always going to be coming up short because you got to kind of juggle these balls. I need more of this, so I have less of that.
That's how I feel. I never have that. That circle
always
never looks
together.
Perfect. But Madly, like if you
perfection doesn't exist, right? Perfection really doesn't exist.
Say that again. Say that again. I'm waiting.
Perfection does not exist. And also we have to radically accept that things are going to be messy. The radical acceptance is a wonderful term that I probably use every day with my patients. And
it's so hard. It's so hard.
I was going to say, that's something that you battle with, Sam.
But Sam, the burden of caretaking, right? We often talk about the burden of caretaking and the burden of logistics and domestic life, especially for women. But then we don't put ourselves as a priority. So you will think about the meal prep for the kids and getting everything done for everyone and, feed the dog, etc. But you also need to be on that list. And it's not selfish to make sure that your capacity, because if you have more capacity for yourself, within yourself, you will do so much better at all the other things you feel compelled to do as well. So
and in theory, that makes so much sense. But how do we do it? Like
when you acknowledge that multidimensional role, we spoke about a bit about that off air, but the multidimensional thing of who are you at home, at work, just with yourself, to make a little bit of time for each of those versions of yourself, even if it's just mentally, to sit with her, have a cup of tea, and remember what are your passions, what are your reasons. But I also know that it's not equal. Like, we're all in the same ocean, but not in the same craft. Some people are on canoes and some people are on yachts, and you know, some people have way more time. But I think the mindfulness that you can grasp just in a 5-minute, make a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, put on a song, something that makes you happy when you're in your car, maybe, I don't know, listen to a podcast like this and surround yourself with some uplifting voices. And there's also the hack of, you know, when you use your 5 senses in your sensory nervous system, we have fight and flight, where, you know, we all know that one, you get very panicky. And when you want to go to your parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest, when we feel calm and you have your whole brain available, a good way to get there is to use your 5 senses. So think about something I can see, feel, taste, hear, and just have a little moment out of your busy schedule and enjoy some of your sensory experiences. What do you guys enjoy? What kind of sensory things?
I was just thinking about the music in the car. So, but for it's the same for me as well. But Sam sent me a reel the other day that was actually hilarious, because Taylor Swift's new album has been released, which we're both obsessed with, and we can listen to it, but we're not allowed to sing along because the kids, if they even allow you to listen to it, so we like live for drop off so we can get them out the car so we can sing along to the songs if we want to, because they decide the playlist.
Yes, exactly. I have one song. I think it's on Loss of My Life that just which is from. Are you a Swiftie, Mareli?
Not really, but I'm going to get so much flack for saying that.
No, not at all. Not from us, you ain't.
No,
from us.
There's no judges, but there's on the Tortured Poets.
I celebrate
department.
all strong women.
Yes, okay, thank you, appreciate it.
On a
previous album, there's a song called I think it's on the Loss of My Life, or it's How Did It End? But she speaks about sitting in a tree, DYING, and it's just something it's lyrics, it's a bridge that you scream, cry along to.
Yes.
And I know if I'm like in a particular week in my cycle, the week before, like, you know, Shark Week before, not Shark Week, it's like, what is it before Shark Week's when the blood comes, right?
Yeah.
What's the week before that? When you're in your luteal phase and you like,
Yes.
And that's me right now, actually. Like, I had a bad drop off with my youngest this morning, and I was just like, really, the tears were like brimming. And if my eldest child wasn't with me in the car, I would have blared that song
and just like
and scream cried it. But I think what you're talking about, Mareli, is there's that helps me regulate. As I'm between errands, but also the TikTokers like to call it touching grass, and whatever that means to you, you know, just go
like
touch
kind
some
of
grass.
Earthing yourself, getting in touch with something that can ground you.
Yeah.
The other thing that I really want to mention right now is actually what we're doing, this sort of community support of women sitting with women. And we don't always have the luxury of that either, but I find so much strength and inspiration from my friends and my mom, older women, younger women, just the community of women. I think it's so important.
You know, we used
to make time for that.
We used to record this podcast weekly before we had many other things in our lives that demanded our attention. And it was genuinely like a weekly therapy session for us. And sometimes we'd have listeners send voice notes. We wouldn't always have guests on the show. And it was just, that is this podcast. And like you say, these types of conversations is one of those things for me. It's like you just let it out and let it go and let the weight off your shoulders. Yeah.
Someone is witnessing you and saying, you are not crazy, me too. Or someone is, just saying, I can't believe that's happening to you. What kind of support do you need? And if we could just stop pretending that everything is fine, that would be great. Stop pretending with your friends and stop pretending with other moms and other women.
I don't want to drop this particular topic because I want to talk more in depth about self-care for the listeners. It's air quotes self-care. a little bit later. And please remind me, ladies, to chat about chaos paddle.
Uh-huh.
Chaos paddle. I'll make a note.
Please make a note. Remind me when we circle back to that, or when we circle to that. I do want to slot in here. We're talking about sort of grounding and laying witness to one another's, lives, and you're not crazy. You are going through these things. We've spoken a lot on the series on TGE Talks Menopause about the physical commonalities in women who are experiencing perimenopause and menopause. I'm interested in any mental commonalities. What is happening here exactly? You did touch on it a bit, of how the dopamine drops when the estrogen drops, and how it is harder to get into that space. So it makes sense that you are a little bit more depressed. I spoke in episode 2 about is it PMDD?
Yes.
Sorry, being diagnosed with PMDD.
Yes.
The extreme rage and depression I was feeling, and how I had to get medically treated for something that was mental, which I'm really fascinated by. Not just that, treating something that's mental with sort of a more physical approach, but then also treating something that feels physical, that feels like you're going crazy, and using sort of a mental tactic to tackle that. What are those commonalities? I've thrown a lot at you.
No, that's good. I'm with you. I think firstly, I want to say that's the beauty of a multidisciplinary team and approach, because you don't have to silo it. You don't have to do it separately. You guys can consult with your doctor about certain parts, and then the doctor will say, maybe go speak to Mareli about, the narrative and the mental stuff. A lot about the midlife time has got to do with what's happening in your brain and your hormones. And that's the one aspect of it. But a lot of it is also identity, how you see yourself, how the world sees you. And that is often, I think for everyone, it's mediated by so many things. So there's your confidence. There are people who think there's so much power in my identity. I'm getting older. My career is booming. Maybe my kids are a little bit older. Some people have a lot of power in this time, and other people feel, like you said earlier about the little tissue, some people feel more invisible. They feel less attractive. They feel less powerful. So it can be a really powerful time, but it can also be a time of shrinking. And so I think the big difference is that there's almost this scale of women being unapologetic, empowered, confident. They take an interest in themselves. They pursue themselves, versus someone who's feeling burdened, less than. And a lot of that has got to do with your narrative, your personal narrative, how you speak to yourself. And this is where therapy is so important, because as a psychologist, I believe my role would be to provide a safe space for someone to explore all of this, to be seen, to say the darkest thing, to say the scary thing, to make meaning of it, to make sense of it. And the truth is, we can't always do it alone, and we can't always do it with our friends. We sometimes need to go and see someone and acknowledge, I need little help that's external to my current system, and then also to think a little bit about the role that the guilt plays. Do we feel guilty and ashamed for even acknowledging that I need help? That's a big thing. That's a very big part of it. And a lot of women also at this time, they feel that they want to show up differently and ask for different things, but are they allowed? We might change our minds a lot at this age about what you want sexually, what you want for work, what you want from friendships. One of you mentioned about the sort of not taking any more bullshit at this age as well.
Yes.
The sort of unapologetic.
Yeah, you have zero fucks left to give.
Yeah.
But how? We can't all just start there. We need to get there. We have to have a safe space to explore your identity. If you think about when we're teenagers, people often talk about the adolescent has the stormy time, and we have so much empathy for the anxious, upset adolescent girl, hormonal rage. It's not that different. We are going through a thing again.
That's so funny. I saw a reel on social media where a teenager or like an adolescent child was describing their mom going through I forget the term. It was hilarious. I'm going to find the link. I'm going to share it with you, Mareli, and I'm going to share it with Sam and our listeners. It was a fantastic reel, but it was comparing, it was satire, but it was comparing the changes, the hormonal changes a woman goes through in perimenopause to what adolescents go through when they, you know, grow up and grow into adulthood.
It's
Well,
like
when they have that surge of hormones as well.
When the
It's
hormones,
so dysregulating.
yes.
And then we're just supposed to have our shit together somehow.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering, I mean, it's never going to be overlooked. There's never going to be a stigma really, unless you come from an extremely conservative or I'm going to dare say backward thinking family, that there's a stigma around sending a teenager to seek, psychotherapy.
Yes.
You're never going to do that because you do understand teenagers are going through a hard time. Do you think that for a woman who is supposed to, quote unquote, have her shit together, maybe she's got the most amazing job, she's got the most supportive husband, her kids are incredible, and she's still unhappy, and people are going like,
what's wrong
why?
with you? Just be grateful.
Yeah. Then that I think is, or we gaslight ourselves into being like, why do I feel this way? I'm just going to suck it up and get on with it instead of seeking that psychotherapy. Is there that stigma still?
For sure. Unfortunately, yes. And I think a lot of people will start by saying it's childhood trauma, for example, as well. That is something that happens at this age. We revisit older things as well. So a lot of the referrals I would get would be someone who says, I am now 45 and I'm thinking about things that happened in my 20s. And that's also common. We revisit and we make sense with our new brains and our new maturity. We make sense of older events, which is actually quite a healthy thing to do, but it can be very distressing, as you can imagine. And then at the same time, this idea that we have brain fog. I don't know if you guys have spoken about that on the podcast related to menopause, but that's also a fact, right?
Yes.
Executive functioning, concentration. Yeah, that also declines.
And you almost kind of mommy brain it. Oh, I've still got mom brain, mommy brain from after having babies. Yeah. And then you're like, surely it can't still be mommy brain this much later.
That does feel like a bit of gaslighting, like societal gaslighting that happens where I went to the doctor and was like, I'm feeling XYZ. And my doctor said to me, but you're postpartum. And I'm like, yeah. And I know that you're postpartum for several years and that your hormones really only settle once your kid is like 7, I think is the kind of average time. Yeah. And then your brain chemicals are postpartum. I don't think you ever really changed. I think you are always, in my opinion, you are always postpartum. But I do understand I am still in that window.
In that bracket.
But I knew myself and I was like, there's something else afoot here. And I think what's so fascinating is I never thought about it that way. We look at adolescence and then matrescence is a fairly new term that's come, and that's looking at the same hormonal soup that you go through when you have kids, but never really, it's so overlooked when it comes to menopause. And I know I was triggered terribly when I had children, when my kids were little, that memories of myself and how I was parented come up, and I had to deal with a lot of anger. Yes. We spoke about this with psychoanalyst Andy Cohen, where I had to deal with a lot, or my, when things crop up age-wise, if my child turns 5, then my husband goes back to thinking about how he was when he was 5. And as your kids grow, you have these flashbacks as a parent. But this is the first time that I've really considered that you have those flashbacks and those memories and these triggers that crop up
as a woman,
as a woman in menopause.
If you think about who you are becoming, you always will think about who you have been and all the versions of you that have existed, and you have to love all of them, and you have to make peace with all of them. And that's quite challenging when you have brain fog, declining estrogen, with the neurological picture that we have, plus the psychosocial stresses, it's a very difficult time. But I also just think it can be empowering. Sometimes we do this work now and it lasts for the rest of your life, and it empowers you for the rest of your life when you stand still with the discomfort and you explore this in a non-judgmental way, in a non-judgmental space, you equip yourself actually with some emotional grit going forward.
Speaking of judgmental space or non-judgmental space, Sam has a great question here that I'm very interested to hear your answer on. What's some of the misconceptions you wish you could put to rest around menopause and mental health? Because when you act like a crazy person, I feels like sometimes you act like just like when you're PMSing and you're like a little bit hormonal before you're in perimenopause, there's such a stigma around it. Oh, you need to get your period, like, you know, and it's jokingly said oftentimes, but I think that there's a lot of stigma and misconceptions around this. So I'd love to hear your take.
For sure. Number one is you are not dramatic. You are not making it up. It is not just in your head. And it is not a personal failure to struggle in this way. It is not a personal failure to admit that you're struggling. And that there is always help. There is always a little bit of a relief or an answer that you can seek and find. I think what else? That's my big one. And then also you are not broken or weak. You are going through a natural human developmental life stage. You are not broken for acknowledging or experiencing that this is happening to you. And stop apologizing for it.
Yeah. I think that's great. And also what you said earlier, Sam, about how many women feel like they're not fertile anymore and they like so much. And we spoke a bit about this off camera. I think more and more women are feeling like motherhood isn't necessarily for them. And so for millennia, we've just been it's been drilled into us that you're supposed to be a mom. You're supposed to procreate. You're supposed to be fertile and have a baby. And if you can't do that, you're broken or there's something wrong with you, which makes sense as to why we would reach perimenopause or approach menopause and start feeling like we don't have value anymore, that there is no use for us anymore because our baby making years are now past, and our kids have grown, and so nobody needs me for anything anymore. And that's an unnecessary stigma, because there are women who choose not to have women, and you are not just the sum total of your fertility or your baby making or your being a mother part of you.
There is no one way to be a woman. There's no one correct, perfect way to be 20, 30, 40, 50 or 60 years old. You get to decide and write your own script if you are, healthy and empowered. And that's, I guess, also a blessing that we have to acknowledge. A lot of us, like the people maybe listening to you guys and watching this, we are free to engage with this kind of media and free to, explore things. So that's wonderful. But yeah, there's no one correct way to be either a mom or not a mom, just a woman in the world. And I think midlife is also a time where we get to explore new hobbies and new things. A lot of us also decide, Charlene, like did you start exercising in a different way or find new hobbies and things? It can be very enjoyable, connecting to yourself in a new way and connecting to others in a new way.
That's 100% true. It's really been that way for me. It's been it's been challenging. I've felt new things and I have felt unwell at times, but I have sought help. I found help. And I think that's kind of also why we're putting together this series, so that our listeners and other women who feel like us can know that this doesn't have to be a death sentence. This might be a difficult time in your life, but there is so much more to life still left for you. And you can actually navigate this and be just fine. A lot of women who I follow on social media, from the States, are saying that we've gotten the help we needed and we're living our best lives yet. Like now I have dropped the last fuck I was about to give, and I have the freedom also of not actually giving a shit anymore. Plus, I've got medication for my hormones. I've got mental health support. I am doing my exercise and my diet things, and I feel like a newly invigorated person.
That is the most relieving thing for me now, and for the age that I'm at now, is to see that women are living their best lives and to hear the changing narrative of how your life doesn't end I know it's a cliche. Life doesn't end at 40. In the same way when we reach 30, life doesn't end at 30. There's so much to look forward to. 30s and 40s, your child, or 30 to 40s, your child-rearing years. This is going to be the best decade of your life, And, you know, I think every generation has that where they go like, life doesn't end at 50. Life doesn't end at 60. But it never really had meaning or impact for me until I heard women saying like, it's called midlife for a reason. You don't live it. It doesn't just exist, you know, in 0 to 45, 50. There's so much more that you can. And Mareli, there was that, and then also just something that I wanted to raise in discussion with my therapist that I thought would be pertinent to. I don't think we've even discussed this, Charlene, but so on a personal level, I think there is a bit of a midlife itch, like, but in your 30s even. So a little bit pre-midlife where you're like married, settled, you have your kids, you've done
the things. You've
done
the
the thing. All the boxes are ticked.
You've arrived at your destination.
I think there are a lot of people who go,
oh, is
and
this
now?
It? Yes.
Is this it?
100%.
And for me, I was busy working one day, and this was, a similar thing happened with the genesis of the Great Equalizer after my firstborn. But after my secondborn, there's really just like this crucial moment where I was busy working and kind of eating shit from a really bad client. And I had that moment of, is this it? No,
is this as good as it gets
not.
For me?
It is not. And I went onto the Wits University's website and immediately emailed the head of department for creative writing, and just on a whim took up that. So you're talking about new hobbies and that. I will take it to the extreme and go and do a degree.
Sam gets a whole degree. That's amazing.
Sam goes and gets a whole degree. But that's what I did. And the head of department phoned me and she said, well, I thought I'd answer your questions in person. And I had this full on rant to her. Why must I do a full degree instead of do a shorter course? I've looked up all of these. Like I realized that I had been doing my homework for this dream that I had prior to that. However, and this is where my therapist comes in, that was something I did for me. It's something that I continue to do for me. But those hobbies, and even we're going to talk about chaos paddle, even paddle with my friends sometimes becomes an obligation, becomes another thing that weighs down a woman. And I think women tend, because I think we've seen our mothers and grandmothers do it, we tend to take up even a hobby as another yoke that we bear on our backs.
You're going to just suffer through it, yeah. Instead of being honest with yourself and going, is this actually adding value to this? Am I doing this because I'm supposed to enjoy it? Or am I doing this because it invigorates me?
Right. And I've seen, I don't want to talk out of turn, but I've seen women at the gym picking it up and really enjoying it and loving every moment for the first little bit, but then they sign up for competitions and they start getting a bit more competitive, and then next thing they're crying in the gym, and I'm like, but you did this for fun.
Next thing I join a high rock gym.
Oh God,
we don't have to perform everything we do. We don't have to perform the perfect motherhood, the perfect gym bunny, the perfect painter or journal article writer. We can pursue things just for joy, but then we have to remember to check in. Yes. I think Sam, that's maybe that's the
what
missing
I'm saying. Yeah.
So check in. Is this still
bringing me joy?
My why is my why still the same?
Yes, I actually in my 40th year got a tattoo right here on my arm that says, "Remember why you started. Remember why you embarked on this journey." That it was such a, I don't know why, but I just felt like I need to just remember that I don't just have to be, I think it's because of that theory of, or the comment you made about that perfection does not exist. I don't know why I'm always in pursuit of perfection when it is a myth. It does not exist.
I just need that. Maybe I need to have that tattooed on my arm in my 40th year. What did you say, Mareli? You had two things about perfection. Let's just repeat it. You like perfection?
That it doesn't exist, and I think also that it looks different for every person. There's this pursuit of the ideal self, but what is your motivation? And guys, it's not selfish to pursue yourself or to pursue joy. It is not selfish to pursue something that makes you happy and excited.
I think that's very true. And as mothers, I think it's important for our children to see also that we do something for us. Because I want my kid to grow up one day and be completely okay with doing something for themselves and not feel guilty about it or feel like, oh, this is selfish.
Yeah. Yeah. It really was a big reckoning for me to sit in my therapist's office. And it was one of those beautiful moments where like I came to the realization and my therapist was like,
just sitting there kind of giving you the nod.
Where I was like, I did this for fun. And
now look what I've done.
I done fucked up my hobby. But in searching for the perfection of it, and even I did join a High Rocks gym, Charlene.
But it does make you happy.
It brings me joy, and I've signed up for High Rocks. And I have a partner who's also a bit under pressure, and it was such a relief and so refreshing to be able to say, because she was anxious about joining because she's got a lot going on in her life, and I was like, girlfriend, I also have a lot going on in my life. Let's compare notes here. Equally, we're under a lot of pressure. This competition is for fun. It's totally a funsies, like this we're doing for joy. We're not doing it for a podium finish. We're not even doing it for a fast finish. Yes. This is like, we need to be there and do it comfortably and as we're training, also just enjoy every moment. This cannot be another burden I put on my back.
Yeah.
And is this similar to Chaos Paddle that we need to speak about? So
Chaos Paddle, we do need to speak about Chaos Paddle. So a huge pet peeve of mine. And from the beginning, I think our second episode ever on The Great Equalizer with the Hardy Dolls in the background and the gas guy who kept interrupting us.
Interrupt our recording.
Our second episode ever was on self-care and on real self-care. And I just really have had it with even one night stays, Mareli, like you told us also off mic, and we're very happy for you, how you've been on extended holidays, and we love it for you so much.
Retreats and
Italy and France and just living, soaking up all your goodness. That, I think, is a good reset. I'm talking about false, let's call it false self-care. Doing my nails and all of that, sure, like maintaining my appearance and feeling good about myself does tick the box somewhat, but it feels like a chore. A bubble bath's not going to do it for me.
Yeah.
Not going to do a total reset. Sure, I need the grounding and stuff, like we mentioned, touching grass, but just, when people say, just go light a candle, or I poured you a glass of wine, or just like those very generic suggestions don't do it for me. And we did touch on this earlier, this community of women, right? Yeah. And I think that community and that it's more of an extended part of your lifestyle, self-care that you need to be cognizant of. And I think it takes
the consistent things that you do that kind of form a pattern over time that helps refuel you or fills your cup.
I think so Mareli, I don't know if you have anything to say about this, but I think it takes as much time as the nutrition, sleep, and exercise that we spoke about. It does take work and consistency to start a community and maintain that community.
Make time on your to-do list to say, check in with a friend. And if we love a voice note as well. I've got a big group of friends that, we listen to each other's stories. Maybe it's because a lot of us are also therapists, so we love a story, but sending a voice note with a little update or a song or something, just mindfully make some time to check in. And I just also think this pursuit of self-care doesn't have to look the same every day.
Or the same for everyone.
Yes.
Or for everyone. Something that helps you today might annoy you tomorrow, and that's fine. Then just do something else.
Right.
There's no prescription. Right. I just want you to maybe have a toolbox with lots of different things, and you take out different items at different times, you know?
Yes,
Good one.
that's such a
That's
good
great
analogy. I overheard my husband say yesterday that a screwdriver is great for screwing in a screw. It's a wonderful, very useful tool, but it's not very good for hammering something in. That's not its use. So use it for what it's good at, you know? So if you have a toolbox of little things like that, then it's useful at a certain time, depending on what you need to do.
Which brings me to chaos paddle.
Yes.
We, as a group of friends with sort of my husband's initial friends that are my friends and their spouses and wives. It's not a huge group, but they did start just a regular paddle like every second week. Hey, let's meet up at this venue. And we did it once and we enjoyed it and we're like, cool, let's do it every second week so that there's no pressure to like do a weekly thing. But what I started to notice was that the women there was a very clear gender divide and the women were like their attention was divided. We couldn't get in like a good full paddle session because the kids are there and we would tend to them, which is a whole other discussion. Like I'm not going to get into the gender divide.
About the sort of domestic burden
and the mother load, as we call it.
It's a whole other discussion. But I at one point then invited girlfriends of mine. And I always say these girlfriends are a particular blessing in my life because they are not married and don't have kids. And I'm not saying that they should always never have kids or not get married. They must live their life. But the fact that they don't have that same, I'm not going to call it burden, but those same responsibilities as what I have, grounds me in an unexpected way that I never thought. So I introduced them to paddle, but the thing is with the men in the mix, it was very rules oriented. Okay. And it was like the men are like, that's a point, that's not allowed. Yes. They're competitive and they love that. And I can see that the men thrive off of this for the most part. And, you know, one of the guys even sent us a YouTube tutorial so that we could all learn the rules.
And he mansplained it to you. He mansplained.
But I mean, I don't know if it's so, maybe he did, but I still don't know the rules of paddle. Let's put it that way.
I don't care
enough.
If I strike the ball and it goes that way, I've done a great job.
Yeah, I did not watch the tutorial.
Good for you.
Bless him. And I love him for that. And I let the men play. But eventually this evolved into my single girlfriends that I had brought to one paddle session went, we like this, don't like the rules so much. And so they committed.
But we like being able to chat and just hitting a ball at each other.
just to let out the tension of getting to smacking the ball. And having a good like volley going where you hit the ball back and forth to one another. And you get in a good exercise session, number one. So it is also like a girl gab session that's not centered around food. We're not only just going to restaurants and drinking wine. We're doing something that's getting the blood flowing, right? But all we do, and that's the rules of chaos paddle, keep the ball in the air. There are no points. There are no rules. We cheer each other on, and you're not allowed to say sorry. There's a sorry jar. Because women, and you see it all the time when a new person comes into the fold, every now and then there's someone new, someone's mom comes, and it's just this beautiful community of, you know, women
chaos paddle.
It's chaos. It is chaos because
also that radical acceptance that we spoke about. I'm just going to hit the ball and we're going to accept it. There's no rules.
There are no rules, but you do see the women and even the kind of OGs that were there. We tend to be like, oh, sorry, that was a bad one, and you got to nip it in the bud. Men do not do that as much as women. They do not apologize. No. They fall into this competitive, thing. And I love it for them. But I think the self-care in that was recognizing, like, I'm not going to have a huge fight with my husband or be like, the girls are getting their session in and the men must look after. I was just like, I'm going to politely peel away from this for a little bit and only gather the girls and
Because we're on the same page.
We're on the
about
same
this
page.
thing.
And every woman that we speak to, and even those who, because paddle can be intimidating for someone who doesn't know how to hit a ball. Ask me,
Yeah.
you know?
Hand-eye coordination.
Right. So when you come into this fold and you just like, that people say, I didn't bring my tackies. And we're like, you're getting on the courts and all we need, there are no rules. And when they see that radical acceptance, then it's like,
okay,
a sense of relief.
I can do
I'm free
this.
to play.
The pressure's off.
And I'm free to play here.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I'm hijacking.
I'm going to recommend it.
I know I've been invited to Chaos Paddle, but now that you've explained it to me, I feel very envious that I haven't been able to come to Chaos Paddle yet. So
I'll invite you again.
I'm going to hijack your next session. I'm gonna be there.
That is another thing that I want to say is because I have the responsibilities that my girlfriends don't. There was also this radical acceptance, Madly, of they meet every week. And I at one point said to them,
I cannot.
Guys, I can't do this every week. I'll commit to once a month. And in therapy with my therapist, it also came about and she's just like, hang on. And because I said, I've got paddle tonight and I just, I was like, it became another burden because I'd made a monthly commitment to my friends. And
Guilty
she said,
thing.
yeah. And she said to me, hang on here. Are you doing the paddle tonight for you or are you doing it for your friends? Because best you be doing it for you. You need to be going out. Play. Play is a big word in our therapy sessions. And I think that that's a really important word for women postpartum and into their midlife. Play. We need to be playing and enjoying it because I think that's what broke me free from this martyr mentality.
Yeah. You're allowed to play and be in your sensual experience.
Yeah, exactly. Touching grass, essentially. That's my version of touching grass. And I know when I need to get to that point of like, I need to remove myself from the situation, either for 5 minutes or maybe for a night or two. Ideally for 3 weeks, but let's be real. Yeah.
But I mean, it's no bloody wonder that as women, like in relationships, if I think about, so your libido starts to dip when these hormonal changes happen. But way before that, you're not in your sensory experience for most things because either you're touched out constantly because you got little hands and bodies all over you, or you're just physically exhausted and you're just like that you cannot take any more sensory input at any point in time. So we're just as women constantly coming up short on that playful, fun, enjoyment experience. And so that by the time you get to the point of needing to be intimate with your husband, you're mentally checked out because you're so mentally...
Needing to be is something I would call you out on, Charlie. Needing to be. You don't need to.
Yes,
it's
please
not a
call
role
me out. You're right. You're right.
You don't have to perform the sex kitten role. Desire needs to be cultivated in yourself and something you consent to and say yes to.
You're so right. And that's exactly the mistake we make because you're not making time or you're not feeling that way inclined. You don't arrive at the end of the day when the kids have gone to sleep and you've had a full day or a full week or whatever and you're like, oh, I can't wait to just be in this state with my partner or my husband. You don't feel that way. You're like, literally, if you've been married long enough, I'm like, are we going to do that thing that we never get to do anymore that starts with S? Sleep. You're like, So, and then your point about the chaos paddle got me thinking about that. And when you said you got to play, you got to be in your sensual, whatever experience state, it's not just about sex. It's about everything else in our life that we do not feel in that way because it's work. That by the time you get to when there's actually time or space for us to feel intimacy, or you become so numb to feeling things
because you're playing a role.
Because you're playing a role that you get to the time where there's space, and then I literally just said it, where you're needing to be in a role with your husband. You're needing to be a sexual partner to your partner. You don't need to be a sexual partner to anyone. You can enjoy that.
If you think about menopause and perimenopause as being such a physical experience already, often an uncomfortable one, we also tuned into our somatic experiences. It would do us the world of good to also have positive somatic experiences, right? And enjoyable physical experiences. And women in midlife can actually have great sex. It's actually a time where you know what you like and you know your body and you know yourself. It actually
You're
is
comfortable
maybe
with
even better than
verbalizing
before.
it. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we should.
And so we should.
And so
So
we
we
should.
should.
I
Yes.
think
Unapologetically.
I think there's definitely a reframe that needs to happen. Mareli, you really like the cogs are turning like around this just this thinking about how I see my life as a role, how I play a mother, how I play a wife, how I play a student. When am I ever just Sam?
You lose Sam because you lose that person, and that was a big difficulty for me once I became a mom. I absolutely loved my baby. I loved that I did this and I achieved this and whatever, but for a very long time I was like, I don't know who the fuck I am. Like, I miss Charlene, who used to color in. And we have an episode where I talk about this very thing.
About coloring in.
Coloring in. And
Yeah.
a coloring, I used to, what did I do with
And
my
singing,
time? I used to
yeah.
color in. I used to sing in the shower. I used to wake up and turn the radio on and have music blaring the whole goddamn day. I used to be the person that people would talk mid-conversation and I'd interrupt them, break out into song because they said something that reminded me of a lyric in a song that I knew. If I know a lyric to any song at this point in my life, it's an achievement. I miss that, Charlene. I miss that.
Apart from Taylor Swift, guys, you know her. You know
we
her
know
well.
her lyrics, yeah. Very familiar.
It's also this thing of who are we when we are completely alone, when you are unburdened by your role, when you just have, I think that's one of the gifts that I had recently traveling, being completely anonymous and being by yourself. That's a big blessing we don't often get to have. Who are
Yeah.
you then? Which version of yourself exists then? And who shows up when you're completely alone?
Yeah.
You know, that also, like, at one point, somebody sent me a questionnaire, which was also for like a motherhood platform around Women's Day. And it was, describe who you are without saying that you're a mother and without naming your occupation. Let me tell you,
Sure.
couldn't answer the question.
Yes.
Who am I outside of what I do and who I am to other people? You know, you weren't allowed to say that you're a wife. You weren't allowed to say that you're a mother. And you weren't allowed to say what you do. Couldn't answer it. And so I think that's a huge reframe for me in this step towards the positive midlife, towards enjoying it.
Yeah, because we link our identity to things and people and stages, which means when that stage changes or for some reason has to end, you're left with no identity and feeling like you have no validation.
Yeah.
But this can also be a very positive exploration. Okay, it can be exciting.
So how is it, what steps can women be taking towards just knowing themselves and enjoying this time of their lives?
The non-judgmental self-narrative, to sort of, when you think about your best friend, right? You guys are really close friends. If Sam thinks about Charlene and Charlene tells her something, you're not going to judge her. You're going to receive her and listen to her and be curious in a kind way. To be that best friend to yourself, that's a very good place to start. And just think, would I ever speak to my best friend or my sister the way I'm speaking to myself right now? To edit that narrative is very important. And then to find safe spaces where you don't have to apologize, whether that's with a friend or a therapist or your mom, or just in a journal where you sit and you just write for 5 minutes.
Or chaos paddle once a month.
Or chaos paddle once a month. Yes, I keep forgetting about that. I'm going to start prescribing that to my patients now as well.
And I wonder, Mareli, like we've said it, like this feels like a lot of work that we're doing for ourselves, and rightfully so. We should be doing the work.
Worth it.
You're worth it. You're worth the effort that you put into yourself. But if there are partners, families, workplaces, thinking about how to curate a kinder experience and a more gentle experience for the women in their lives, what would you suggest from a mental health point of view?
I love this question because I think the answer is simple. Do not assume, just listen to her. Just ask, what do you need? Do you need emotional support? Do you need some practical support? Because every woman, like every human, is unique and different. So create a space where she can tell you what she's going through or what she needs. If it's to be left alone, or if it's to be, please wash the dishes, or the burden of caretaking is real for women. And at work or at home, anyone who loves us, who wants to support, just ask, just listen. Say, hey, I'm not going to assume I know what you need. Will you please tell me? And I will do my best. I might get it wrong, but let's have a dialogue.
We could really be talking for the rest of the day.
100%.
But we do have a time limit, and you have a busy schedule, Mareli, as someone who helps other women. Firstly, we will be putting our listeners in touch. Those in Cape Town who need to find you. What's the best way to go about it? Your website?
I do have a website with a little message box, so you can pop me a message there, but also just on email, and I will share my email with you guys. I think you have it. I'm good at responding to emails, and I respond myself. It's not a receptionist, it's me.
Okay,
so
nice to know. Nice to know. Let's hope you get bombarded with women in midlife or approaching perimenopause.
Do you only do in-person sessions, Mareli, or do you do online?
I do online as well.
Oh,
I do
of course.
online.
That's great for our
question,
Joburg listeners. Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's...
And Durban.
Yes.
And Bloemfontein.
Yes, exactly.
And the
And
Northern
Uppington.
Cape, Uppington, you know.
I haven't looked at our stats lately. I don't know what stats you're looking at. Do we have a new following?
Many followers in America. So if you're in the United States, Mareli Fischer is a great clinical psychologist.
We will work something out with the time
With the time
difference.
difference. Everything is figure outable, guys.
Yes.
Mareli, last question. If there is a listener in the throes of a mental health crisis, be it depression, be it a loss of self,
Wanting
anxiety,
to divorce her husband because he's all of a sudden, according to her, become an absolute asshole.
yeah, someone's struggling even postpartum. You know,
Maybe he's always been an asshole. Maybe it's just the way she feels right
Mareli
now.
will help you. Well, what can they do right now? What can that person do in the moment?
Accept that you need the help. Stop judging yourself. Know that there's always hope. And even if you just put into Google some of the things you're experiencing, there will be a platform. There will be someone who can support you. Don't be afraid to reach out. Someone will catch you. There are lots of us out there who want to. You're not alone.
Oh gosh, there's so much ground that we did want to cover, but
I think we touched on the key points, and I think we've hopefully left our listeners and viewers with some of the key things to consider. Even if if you're not even sure whether you are approaching perimenopause, but you've just been feeling a little off. I think we've touched on a lot here, and then we'll hook you up with our resources and our expert guests. So if you have any more questions that we didn't touch on, you're welcome to email us or reach out.
Please do feel free to do that. And Mareli Fischer, what a pleasure to finally sit down and chat with you. I hope it's not the last time.
Thank
Thank you for giving us your time.
I would be happy to return. It was so lovely. Thank you so much.